What could be better than Khorne versus Norsca in the land of bones? Here we are with just such a replay from Coops. Valkia leading the way. We've got some Chaos Warriors of Khorne with halberds for a nice solid backline. Front line of some Marauders. Flanks supported by Warhounds with some Chaos Knights of Khorne looking absolutely fantastic. Also, pretty decent option. I mean, all fire damage units are decent options against Norsca, but here in particular, the heavy armor, just overall very good stats, plus fire damage means they will trade fairly well into Skinwolf type units, which we do have a few of there. A couple armored Skinwolves and the Regiment of Renown. Got a Mammoth here in the center, Soul Crusher with Wulfric the Wanderer, some Norscan Warhounds, Lore of Metal, Shaman Sorcerer, Javelin Hunters, and Marauders currently like kiting and also charging simultaneously in the front line. So we better get to that as the Marauders of Khorne and the Marauders of Norsca clash here. Honestly, not sure who to give this to. I guess we'll see in this clean 1v1. I would think that the Norscan Marauders probably win out in the long run once their rage ability kind of ticks up and the Khorne Marauders lose Frenzy, which should happen around the same time, but right now trading fairly evenly, if not a little bit in advantage of Khorne. The Mammoth is obviously going to say, screw your test, that's not how this game works in practice, and come in and just ruin the whole thing, which I definitely appreciate. Meanwhile, out on the far flanks here, the Warhounds and the Chaos Knights taking severe damage from the bombardment of Lore of Metal, which is swinging that fight in Norsca's favor, while on the opposite flank, it's going to be interesting. The Skinwolves do manage to get into the Warhounds without the Knights being in the right position. The Knights are going to get blocked here by the Marauders, but still are able to mostly get through and get onto those Skinwolves. The Wulfric is also supporting that position. Soul Crusher is also looming in for a potential rear charge into those halberds. They do have Horn of Khorne active, though, so if they can turn around, start getting some attack animations, will definitely do some serious damage to the Mammoth. Nice Overcast Searing Doom here. It's going to do some pretty decent damage. I'm not the biggest fan of the Overcast. I think it's much more efficient to just spam cast regular one, but still, Valky's doing her best to try and eliminate the Shaman Sorcerer to get rid of that magic regardless. And these Khorne Knights over on this left flank are just absolutely dying in the grind against those Skinwolves. The ones over here also are not trading as well as I had hoped, mainly because of the presence of Mammoth and Wulfric, of course, but they definitely still have plenty of support elements nearby that are potentially able to come and help. We've got some Halberd Warriors moving in here. The Marauders also can run to interrupt the Javelin Hunters to prevent them from getting onto the Chaos Knights here. Even with the heavy armor, the Chaos Knights will still take significant damage. And it looks like the Knights are actually just going to detach and go after the Marauder Javelin Hunters themselves, which is honestly probably the right call. Just kind of let these Skinwolves and the Mammoth saturate in with the halberds and get caught up on them and not really, do a lot here, whereas the Knights can come in, get a really impactful charge. Nice little sandwich with the Hounds in the rear charge. Mammoth is still pursuing, though, and definitely putting a hurt into these Khorne Knights as they try and complete their objective. Really nice Lore of Boats, too, through that halberd there. Did quite a bit of damage, so Norsca's definitely punching back hard, but Valky is still alive and fighting. They've managed to now break most of these Javelin Hunters, or not quite, actually. They're all wavering, but still. Valkia charges in. Immediate Hunter of Champions on her, though. She's going to get rear charged by the Skinwolves, and Wulfric also coming in. It's looking pretty tough for Khorne there, but let's see how they can turn things around. The Knights have actually broken some of the Javelin Hunters now, and maybe turn around and help support Valkia here. She does pop her Demon Shield, and not a moment too soon, as Wulfric and the Mammoth are both collapsing with Hunter of Champions active, which is now dropped. The Knights are now in position also to support, so Valkia is suddenly in a much safer position than she was about 10 seconds ago. So that was one of the best uses of Demon Shield I've probably ever seen. Makes me proud for Coops as a longtime patron of mine. That said, Valkia is still in big trouble here. Horn of Khorne has been popped, and the halberds in particular will be doing some really nice damage, but Valkia looks like she's going to get routed here. Question is, can these Khorne halberds carry the rest of this game? Most of the threats that remain for Norsca is, of course, Soul Crusher and all these Skinwolves. It's a lot of large, right? There are some Javelin Hunters nearby, but they're not likely to impact the battle. I guess they would a little bit, firing into the rear of the halberds. The other thing, too, is it's just a lot of value, right, in terms of the Soul Crusher and, you know, all these Skin Wolves. They just cost a lot, but I'm going to see another Spear Slopnir go down. Won't do a lot of damage to the Skin Wolves, but it's something. Knights also, once again, just bypassing the Skin Wolves, getting a really nice charge into these Javelin Hunters. And Khorne Infantry is just full court press right now, trying to pressure these Norscan units. All that Halberd Infantry is proving very, very impactful. And in general, Halberd Infantry has just historically been very good against Norsca. Especially halberds that can deal a lot of damage, which Khorne halberds certainly fall into that category. They're probably the most offensively focused halberds in the game, despite having 110 armor. They have pretty low melee defense, like lower melee defense than even some lower tier halberds like Empire halberds, right? Or even like zombie halberds probably have similar melee defense, honestly, but higher weapon strength than normal for this particular class, right? I mean, it wouldn't be high for a true elite halberd like... you know, even Phoenix Guard, I think, technically have higher weapon strength, which is kind of hilarious. But anyway, they are more of a mid-tier halberd, certainly, than an elite halberd. But they kind of do skew more towards the high end of that mid-tier in cost and performance. Here, they're doing a really good job holding out, although a couple of those units do tear out here. It looks like 2 managed to stay in the fight with their leadership. Valkia also survived all of that, managed to escape, get that Shaman Sorcerer assassinated, which is definitely going to help swing things back in favor for Khorne, keeping these hunters routed off, and still one reasonably healthy unit of halberds participating is also just going to be in kind of tactical reserve. Nope, looks like they detach and head back towards that fight. We've also got some Warhounds kind of wheeling around, trying to bring these Skin Wolves out of position. Wow, the Skin Wolves, yeah, they're doing a good job of also not staying over long, although suddenly things kind of take a turn as the HP of Norsca starts to hit a critical mass here. They just haven't been able to grind through all of these Khorne halberds here, and this, especially the Soul Crusher routing, really, really bad for Norsca. Really need that terror in order to keep the terror route up and keep these Khorne units running for the hills. But at this point, the halberds are forming up once again. We're going to fast forward a little bit as these Javelin Hunters get hunted down by the Marauders of Khorne. But they're going to also get hunted down by little Skin Wolves. Meanwhile, the rest of the Khorne forces are just concentrating on finishing off the Soul Crusher here. Valkia gets in with the support of her halberds, manages to break the Soul Crusher once again, as well as those Armored Skin Wolves. Excuse me. So, now as we move into this final phase of the battle, it's just Wulfric and a handful of Skin Wolves with a few Javelins as well. They are going to get some damage, and certainly the Javelins have decent armor piercing. I mean, 7 armor piercing per shot is definitely solid with 18 overall damage, but that extra 10 armor that the Khorne halberds get over the regular Chaos Warrior halberds actually helps, you know, bring that to minimum damage hit, or I guess maximum damage hit, up that little bit extra, what, 5%, which might not seem like a lot, but it certainly helps in a very kind of close situation like this, where every little bit matters in the long run, but we'll see. Certainly Valkia has her work cut out for her. Wulfric and the Maws of Savagery are going to attack this one flank where the weakened unit is and try their best to cycle charge, while the Javelin Hunters really should just shoot and kite for the time being, try and use up the rest of their ammunition. But Valkia has the mobility to shut that down. She's going to get in combat and at least force them away and prevent them from firing. That will likely draw the Maws of Savagery in for a surround, which, you know, to be honest, she's not large, so I don't know that I would actually commit to this. I might just try and keep kiting here a little bit, because the halberds are now going to be able to get in play against the Skin Wolves, which is definitely what you want to avoid for as long as possible. That said, there's really not a lot of other options left for Norsca at this point, and things are looking pretty good. I mean, if they can actually break Valkia and finish her off here, the leadership of Khorne will start to collapse pretty quickly. So I definitely get the focus on just taking out Valkia, and Skinwolves once again are coming for Surround, and I guess this is not even the Maws of Savagery, so don't even have that good of armor-piercing damage, but just high weapon damage overall. Try and get that in a Surround. Valkia manages once again to squeak away through her halberds, and this is going to repeat for some time, so we'll go ahead and fast forward once again through this longer final phase, as Norsca is definitely trying to outmaneuver. They do manage to scrap one halberd, and once again almost catch Valkia, but she is just so slippery, snaking through those friendly halberds. And the Norscan player trying their best to just keep it on the move and keep charging into the most weakened units, take them out as they get isolated. And it does take some time, but it's worth it for Norsca to try and be patient here and not overcommit to a big engagement where they would just lose outright. But eventually, Norscan player is going to give in, sensing that they were just about to hit army losses with those halberds bearing down. And it's pretty impressive performance, honestly, by the Khorne halberds. I mean, really, truly spectacular in a few cases, but just overall, very, very good. And certainly, this is a matchup where they can shine. A lot of what Norsca brings to the table, they can counter. And that offensive focus helps them punch hard in areas where, you know, regular Chaos Halberds wouldn't punch nearly as hard. So there you go. Chaos Knights of Khorne definitely faced a tough task out on the flanks. Got eaten up by those Skin Wolves, and the great job by Crowfather here, using his magic and the Hounds to kind of break the charges and get some good value, help swing the fight against the Chaos Knights. It's just the build didn't have the right tools for dealing with that many halberds. He was really lacking. Besides, you know, the Mammoth, Wolfric also with Laura Boats has some anti-infantry ability, but even like taking this caster on a chariot, I mean, yes, he's going to count as large, might get assassinated by Valkia even potentially quicker, but if you can keep him alive and on the move and rear charging, he'll get some damage. Alternately, you know, try and maybe take some champs in here. 3 Skin Wolves, I mean, they did pay for themselves, so it's hard to criticize. But yeah, just interesting overall to have some kind of armor-piercing anti-infantry component that's not large. I mean, champs are really the only option that would be viable, I think, and even then, they probably take a good amount of damage in return from the Khorne halberds because of that offensive focus. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.